Welcome to the Deep Dive, ready to explore today's biggest cybersecurity and data breach news. Buckle up, because we've got some unsettling trends, surprising wins, and a whole lot of information you need to know as of February 7th, 2025.
Let's kick things off with ransomware. It's a bit of a head-scratcher. Attacks are at an all-time high, but payouts have actually plummeted 35% since 2023.
Wow, that is a pretty wild paradox.
Yeah.
More attacks, less money. So what's happening behind the scenes?
Well, it seems like a combination of factors. We've got law enforcement successes, like those takedowns of Lockbit and Black Hat.
Right.
And we're seeing victims increasingly refusing to pay, so it's almost like their business model is starting to crumble.
So good news for potential victims.
Yeah.
But how are these ransomware gangs reacting to this financial squeeze?
Honestly, they're getting a little desperate. We're seeing things like inflated victim lists, re-releasing old data, even pretending to target subsidiaries as separate entities. It's all about keeping up appearances.
So it's a psychological game now?
Absolutely. Maintaining that reputation and extortion power is key for them.
So what does this shift in the ransomware landscape mean for our listeners?
It's a double-edged sword, encouraging to see their tactics becoming less profitable.
Right.
But their desperation means we can't afford to be complacent. Strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, and those regular backups are more important now than ever.
Speaking of new threats, there's this unsettling report about malware targeting our phones. And not just Androids this time, iPhones too.
Yeah, this is a first. We're seeing this screenshot reading malware on both Google Play and the Apple App Store.
Really, the App Store too.
It uses OCR, optical character recognition, to scan your photo library for crypto wallet recovery phrases.
That's unsettling. So many of us store sensitive information in our photo libraries just for convenience. Are there other sensitive data categories that attackers might target in our photos?
It's still early, but the fact that it bypassed Apple's security, well, that's a huge red flag. It suggests attackers are finding new ways to exploit our trust in app stores. Think anything you wouldn't want someone else to see, IDs, financial documents,
Right.
even private conversations.
Okay, that's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
So no more storing sensitive information in our photo libraries. Got it. What practical steps can we take to mitigate this mobile threat?
Be cautious about app downloads, especially those that request access to your photos.
Right.
And use dedicated secure storage for that sensitive information.
So password managers, encrypted notes apps, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And while we're on the topic of evolving threats, there's also a surge in attacks targeting the network edge. Firewalls, routers, all those Internet of Things devices we have.
Absolutely. The Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the US, has released reports highlighting this vulnerability. They're saying compromising these devices gives attackers a backdoor to entire networks.
It seems attackers are expanding their targets beyond traditional computers and phones. What are the Five Eyes recommendations for protecting those edge devices?
They stress the basics: strong passwords, regular firmware updates, and network segmentation. Isolate those devices and limit the potential damage.
Right.
Think of it as creating a security perimeter within your own home network.
So we're talking about securing our smart TVs, thermostats, even refrigerators. What's next? Our toasters.
It's not far-fetched. Attackers are getting incredibly creative. Take the Lazarus Group.
The North Korea-linked hacking group.
That's the one. They're using fake LinkedIn job offers to distribute a cross-platform JavaScript stealer.
Wait, so just by applying for a job on LinkedIn, you could get hacked? How does that work?
They exploit people's, eagerness for new opportunities. They lure them into downloading these malicious files disguised as project demos or applications.
Wow, that's a new level of deviousness.
Yeah.
It seems no platform is safe.
It really underscores the need for vigilance. Always double-check the legitimacy of job postings and be wary of unsolicited downloads, even from sources that seem reputable.
Okay, so let's shift gears from the threats themselves to the regulations designed to protect us. The EU's Digital Operational Resilience Act, or DORA, has been making waves in the financial sector.
It came into effect in January,
Right.
aiming to bolster the financial sector's cyber resilience. It covers everything from ICT risk management and incident reporting to third-party risk and information sharing.
So a massive overhaul of cybersecurity standards. I imagine it's creating headaches for a lot of CIOs and CISOs trying to implement these sweeping changes.
Absolutely. Compliance is a major hurdle, especially for smaller firms with limited resources. They're grappling with renegotiating contracts with ICT suppliers,
Right.
bolstering internal IT governance and training staff. It's a huge undertaking.
Given the complexities and costs, what's the upside for these financial institutions?
Well, while challenging, DORA fosters a proactive and collaborative approach to cybersecurity. It's about embedding security into the very fabric of their operations, ultimately creating a more secure financial ecosystem for everyone.
It seems like DORA is forcing companies to move beyond just ticking boxes and actually prioritize security. But what about the human element? We've seen that statistic about 21% of CISOs feeling pressured not to report compliance issues.
Yeah, it's a disturbing trend, highlighting those ethical and legal dilemmas many CISOs face. They're caught between loyalty to their company and regulatory obligations,
Right.
often pressured to downplay security risks or even misclassify incidents to avoid scrutiny.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster. What are the potential consequences of this pressure to stay silent?
The consequences can be severe, not only putting the organization at risk, but the CISO could face personal liability. We've seen cases like the former Uber CISO, you know?
Right, convicted for covering up a data breach. So it's not just about compliance. It's about fostering a culture where security is valued and CISOs feel empowered to speak up. But despite the push towards the cloud, on-premise security isn't going away, is it? We're seeing new security features in Windows Server 2025.
You're right. On-premise solutions remain relevant for organizations with specific security or compliance needs.
Right.
Even primarily cloud-based organizations often have legacy systems that require protection.
It's like they say, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. What are some of the key enhancements in Windows Server 2025 that our listeners should be aware of?
We're seeing mandatory LDAP encryption for all connections, better support for TLS 1.3, and randomly generated passwords for machine accounts. All significant steps in the right direction.
So even if you're focused on the cloud, you can't afford to neglect on-premise security.
Exactly. It's all part of a multi-layered approach to security. And speaking of multi-layered, let's not forget about hot patching. It's becoming more accessible through Azure Arc, allowing administrators to install updates without those system reboots.
That's a huge advantage for maintaining uptime and minimizing disruption.
It is. And while we're discussing positive developments, let's talk about a topic close to home for many in the UK, the concerning rise of data breaches at law firms.
It seems even the legal profession isn't immune to these cyber attacks.
Research from Net Documents, a cloud-based content management provider for legal professionals, revealed a 39% increase in reported UK data breaches from 2023 to 2024.
Wow, and we're not talking about small-scale incidents. These breaches involve data related to a staggering 7.9 million individuals.
It's a stark reminder of the sensitive information these firms handle and the importance of robust security measures.
And it's not just happening in the UK. Vorwerk, the company behind the Thermomix kitchen appliance, also experienced a data breach. Hackers accessed user data through their official recipe form.
It's a wake-up call that seemingly harmless platforms can be targets. The breach exposed names, addresses, birth dates, phone numbers, even cooking preferences for millions of users worldwide.
It seems we're hearing about data breaches more and more frequently. Are companies just struggling to keep up with these evolving threats?
The sophistication and persistence of attackers are constantly evolving. It's challenging for organizations to stay ahead. It's like a never-ending game of cat and mouse.
And speaking of sophisticated attacks, Cisco recently disclosed 2 critical vulnerabilities in their Identity Services Engine, or ISE.
These flaws are concerning because they could allow attackers root-level access to affected systems, enabling them to execute arbitrary commands.
It sounds like a worst-case scenario. Are they addressing the issue?
Cisco has released patches.
Good.
But swift action is crucial for organizations relying on their IS for identity and access management.
Patching is always a race against time. It really underscores the need for those proactive security measures. But let's circle back to the evolving landscape of ransomware. You mentioned payouts are declining despite the rise in attacks. Let's dive a little deeper into that.
We're seeing a shift driven by several factors. Law enforcement agencies are cracking down, international cooperation is increasing, and victims are, like we said before, refusing to pay ransoms.
It seems like companies are realizing that paying up doesn't guarantee data return, and it encourages further attacks. It's like feeding a monster, it just keeps coming back for more.
Precisely. There's no guarantee attackers will actually decrypt data even after payment, and it only funds their criminal activities.
So it's a lose-lose situation for victims.
Yeah.
But how are these ransomware groups adapting to this resistance?
They're resorting to double extortion, threatening to leak stolen data if you don't pay.
Right.
They're manipulating victim lists, re-releasing old data, and fabricating attacks to maintain their menacing image.
So it's a psychological game now, all about creating fear and uncertainty.
Exactly. They understand their success hinges on that sense of panic and urgency, exploiting the reputational damage and legal ramifications of data breaches to maximize their leverage.
It's not enough to have technical defenses. Organizations need a robust incident response plan and a clear understanding of how to manage these situations.
Absolutely. Communication is key. Companies need to be transparent with stakeholders, both internally and externally, to maintain trust and minimize the impact of an attack.
Transparency is increasingly important in a world where data breaches are almost inevitable. But let's shift our focus to the impact on individuals. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and powerless in the face of all these threats.
It can be daunting, but even small steps can make a difference. Strong, unique passwords for all your accounts, enabling multi-factor authentication whenever possible, and being wary of suspicious emails or links can go a long way.
So it's about being proactive and taking ownership of your security.
And staying informed. Keeping up with cybersecurity news and trends helps you make informed decisions and understand those evolving risks.
Knowledge is power, especially in the digital realm. But let's not end on a negative note. There's been a lot of buzz about passkeys as potential password replacements.
Passkeys represent a significant step forward in authentication technology. They use public key cryptography, which is much more secure than traditional passwords.
So how do they work?
Instead of remembering a complex string of characters, passkeys utilize a unique cryptographic key pair stored on your device.
Okay.
When you log in, your device uses the private key to sign a challenge from the server, proving your identity without transmitting the actual key.
So it's like a digital fingerprint unique to you and your device.
Exactly. And because the private key never leaves your device, it's much harder to steal or compromise.
So no more worrying about weak passwords or phishing attacks. That's a game changer. But how widespread is the adoption of passkeys?
It's still early days, but the potential is huge. As adoption grows, we can expect a significant reduction in password-related breaches and a more secure online experience for everyone. It's a win-win.
It's exciting to see such positive developments in cybersecurity, however. It's clear the threat landscape will continue to evolve.
Absolutely. Security is an ongoing journey. The key is staying informed, being proactive, and embracing a mindset of continuous improvement.
And on that note, we'll wrap up part 1 of today's deep dive. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll continue exploring the latest developments in cybersecurity and data breaches.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Let's pick up where we left off, exploring the cybersecurity and data breach landscape. We were talking about those ethical quandaries that CISOs face.
Right. It's a tough spot to be in, navigating corporate pressure and regulatory obligations.
The scrutiny is intense, the potential for personal liability, it's a lot to handle. And it really underscores the need for a cultural shift.
When you say cultural shift, what do you mean?
Security needs to be viewed as integral to business integrity, not just a cost center,
Right.
It starts with communication, transparency. CISOs need to feel safe speaking up about risks without fear of retribution.
Right.
And organizations need to prioritize security awareness training for all employees, emphasize everyone's role in maintaining those security standards.
So security becomes everyone's responsibility, not just the CISO's burden to bear.
Exactly. It's about creating that sense of shared ownership, accountability. And this cultural shift, it needs to extend beyond individual organizations too. Greater collaboration, information sharing across industries, even between nations.
Right. Those Five Eyes reports, that's a great example of international cooperation in action.
Absolutely. Sharing intelligence and best practices, it raises the bar for cybersecurity globally, makes it harder for attackers to exploit vulnerabilities.
So it's like a united front against cybercrime.
Exactly.
So we've got technical solutions, a culture of security, and international collaboration. But what about us, the individual users?
Right.
What can we do to protect ourselves in this complex threat landscape?
Vigilance is key. Stay informed about the latest threats and scams. Be wary of suspicious emails, links, attachments. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Trust your instincts, right?
Yeah.
Verify before you click.
Exactly. And when it comes to passwords, strong, unique passwords for every account. Enable multi-factor authentication whenever possible. It's simple but powerful, adds an extra layer of security.
And with the advent of passkeys, the future of authentication is looking a lot more secure.
Yeah, passkeys have immense potential. They simplify authentication while enhancing security. As adoption grows, we can expect a significant decrease in password-related breaches, a safer online experience for everyone. It's a win-win.
A win-win, I like it. It's encouraging to see these positive developments, but cybersecurity is constantly evolving, isn't it?
It is. It's a journey, not a destination. As technology advances, so will the threats. Staying informed, proactive, embracing continuous improvement, that's what matters.
The marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Let's wrap up today by looking at some takeaways from all this cybersecurity and data breach news.
Yeah, we've definitely seen some concerning trends,
Yeah.
but I think there are some glimmers of hope, too, like the decline in ransomware payouts.
That is encouraging, right? Despite all those attacks. Seems like our efforts to fight back are working.
It really shows the power of law enforcement, international cooperation, and, victims just refusing to give in.
Right, but we've also seen that those ransomware groups, well, they're not giving up that easily, are they?
No, not at all. They're getting more desperate, resorting to new tactics, double extortion, data leaks, even making up attacks to keep that menacing image.
Yeah.
They're playing on fear, targeting our reputations.
So what's the takeaway here? What can people do to protect themselves from these ransomware threats?
Be prepared. Have those backups. Test them regularly. Don't let yourself be forced to pay a ransom.
Like an insurance policy, Hope you never need it.
Exactly. And prevention is key, too. Stay informed about those ransomware trends. Educate yourself, your employees about phishing scams, social engineering.
Right, knowledge is power.
And security, well, it's not a one-time thing. It's ongoing, vigilance, adaptation, continuous improvement.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And as we wrap up today, I want to emphasize that in this interconnected world, security is everyone's responsibility. Individuals, organizations, governments, we all have a role to play.
It's a team effort, right?
Absolutely. We can create a safer, more resilient online world, but only together. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. Stay vigilant, stay informed, stay safe.
And until next time, keep diving deep.